We believe life can be a journey toward wholeness, toward reconnecting with who we are authentically meant to be. We walk this path of growth and discovery with our children, with our partners, within ourselves. These are the stories of what's possible. These are the conversations that light the way. Welcome to Soul Path Parenting. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Amy.
Well, I am excited to be here today to talk about feelings.
I am so excited too.
And for our listeners, I want to say a few things just to get the conversation started here. First is we are re-recording the introduction to the feelings episode or feelings series because yesterday we recorded and I showed up completely inauthentic, trying to pretend like I was feeling a way other than how I was actually feeling. And it was a very interesting experience to have inside of this conversation. So I want to share that story with you guys because that's what we're really here to talk about. As humans, we have these feelings and emotions. We'll talk about the difference between the two. And many of us are programmed to allow some of the emotions and resist some of the emotions, to judge and label our emotions as good ones and bad ones, and also to create then resistance, not just to ourselves experiencing all the feels, but our kids and other people around us. And it turns out that our ability to access the full range of feelings and have intention and conscious awareness around our emotions is a part of this journey towards wholeness. So before I out myself and tell my story of what happened yesterday, Lauren, I would just love to invite you into the conversation to share your intention for what we're creating here in this series.
I am so excited about this series. We are going to be talking about exactly what you just described. And I absolutely love how we have a real story from yesterday to share that exemplifies exactly what we're talking about. I mean, this is exactly what happens. And so most of us, dare I say, all of us, have conditioning, have stories around what's okay to feel when, how we're supposed to feel, how we're not supposed to feel. And it shows up in all these different ways, including and especially beginning to record a series about feelings.
Of course.
Of course. And it reminds me of when our first attempt at recording Yes, No. And I had this idea of how I was going to show up for that. And then on that day, in that moment, that's not how I was feeling. So here we are talking about feelings, right? And so a big part of what this whole series is going to be about is how do we become welcoming towards whatever it is we are actually feeling in the moment. How do we face it, acknowledge it, engage with it, feel it, and allow it to be what it is, and then consciously and intentionally move from there, which is different from what most of us have been taught to do, which is, I'm feeling something that I shouldn't be feeling right now. Don't feel it. Or I wish I was feeling this instead. Let me act like I'm feeling this instead, or whatever the case may be. So this series is going to be about becoming empowered and creating choice around how we respond to our feelings, how we interact with them, the relationship we have internally with our feelings, and then how we express them externally. And I'm so excited.
Yeah. And so this might be a good place for me to mention. Well, first of all, let me back up a step. You guys, we got the inspiration to do this because I was feeling a feeling called anger. That goes back a month or two. And I came to Lauren Sometimes she's my co-host and sometimes she's my coach. And
Mhm.
she just offers that to me as a friend. That's her way of being in the world, is just coaching the people
It's
around her.
mutual.
Yes. So I came to her because she had, in a previous conversation, given me permission to allow anger, which that was a new idea for me. I will tell you, I had,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about that on the anger episode, y'all, because we're going to do one on anger. And so we got really
Yay.
excited about doing, essentially at the time, what we were calling an Inside Out series. Have you guys seen that
Mhm.
movie? It's a kids' movie. I never see more than like 15 minutes of any kids' movie at a time. But in the Inside Out movie, they have the personification of 5 different feelings. And so essentially, this has evolved now and expanded into a series on feelings, where we're going to be doing a series of episodes on either a feeling or groupings of feelings. And we also have built into this series, if you want to join us on this journey, a self assessment tool that will allow you to really look at your blueprint around feelings. So we have a self-assessment tool on our website, and I'm teeing that up because I actually, Lauren, used it to unpack what happened yesterday. So I'm going to share a little bit about
Amazing.
that. So
Amazing.
this feelings blueprint self-assessment tool is on our website, soulpathparenting.com, under bonus content. And if you want to download it and kind of join us at any point along this journey, and really look at what is happening inside of your experience of feelings and unpack it along with us, we would invite you to do that. And if you just want to listen, that's cool too. So here's what happened yesterday. Okay, first of all, I will just come right out and tell you, I was feeling down. I was feeling sad. What came out of my mouth was matching Lauren and saying I felt excited, which I have a thought story of being excited to kick this off, but I didn't have a feeling of excitement in my body. Let me pause here and bring in the distinction of feelings versus emotions,
Mm.
because this for me was actually a really big aha. So, feelings are what we feel in our body, it is an internal, a somatic experience. And emotions are the outward expression of a feeling. So, it comes from Latin. The E part of emotion means out. And then it comes from the motion part, comes from movere, move. And so it means to move something out. That's an emotion. So that's the outward expression that other people see or that we experience in the world. And so I was trying to have an outward expression, an emotion of excitement matching you, because that really was my thought, like I said. But really, what was happening, my feeling state was sad.
Yes. Well, and I want to take this moment to kind of point out something that I think is really important, which is showing up authentically and in alignment means allowing the internal to match the external.
Yeah.
And so part of why we're talking about this is because, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing, yesterday you showed up with an expectation around what you were going to emote, what you were going to move out. And you followed that when it didn't match what was happening inside.
Yeah.
And I could feel and sense the energy mismatch. And I was thinking, well, we are on a deadline, it's record day. Like I could feel that you weren't showing up in the way that I'm used to you showing up when we
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
And I'm also aware that life is life, deadlines are deadlines. I show up a variety of ways. So we rolled with it. But now here we are today, re recording
Yeah.
and sharing these beautiful insights. Thank you so much for sharing them.
And thank you for just being so present and allowing. And, I just want to also point to the fact that you were able to allow me to sort of show up inauthentically as soon as we stopped recording and concluded. The awareness came in And you just allowed me to be a mismatch without even feeling like you had to call me out. so so thank you
Yeah.
for that. Sometimes we just allow people to not have the awareness arrive yet.
Well,
So,
and as I've grown as a human and a coach, and as I see myself more clearly, and I see that I don't always show up in alignment.
yeah.
And so I don't expect other people to always show up in alignment. It's fascinating to me because there is a past version of me that mistakenly thought I was showing up in alignment more often than I really was,
Yeah.
and that then was expecting that from other people. And now that I feel like I see myself even more clearly, and what I see is how often I don't show up fully in alignment because I'm a human. And so I'm more comfortable being present with other full humans. So
Yeah.
that is just one of those ironic, kind of paradoxical. Previously, I would have thought the more evolved or enlightened I was, the more consistently in alignment I would be. But for me, it's more like a welcoming and an acceptance of how often I'm still not in alignment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so let's go to I wanna just sort of dimensionalize my state of being yesterday because I have a lot
mhm,
of discomfort and judgment around it and not allowing. And I wanna just fess up to that, not because you guys need to know what my emotional blueprint is, but because we really wanna use this as an example so that you can look at yours.
mhm,
And so what we're going to be doing over this series is also really unpacking our emotional blueprints and that's part of what this tool is for. So let me just kind of go back in time to yesterday. So first of all what I will say is it was the second of 2 days that were really gray and rainy. And my current state of being, I have to laugh, is meh, I would say.
mhm,
And
mhm,
it's partly cloudy here in Broomfield, Colorado, but 2 days back to back of rain and dreary grayness after a weekend of what I will just say is was exhaustion because my husband had his second vaccine and did not respond very well. So I was running full speed all weekend with the 4 kids and then got to record time and was feeling exhausted and was feeling really impacted by the weather. And I have a story that I shouldn't be at the effect of the weather.
mhm.
And
Right.
I'm wondering what you think about that because you actually in our conversation yesterday gave me permission in a sense to sort of be at the effect of the weather. I am a person who's very at the effect of weather. And I will say, I grew up in Florida. I lived in Spain for 2 years. And then I've lived in Colorado most of my adult life with a 3 year junket in Chicago. And I got real clear, sort of like, which one of these things is not like the other? Three of these four places are known for sunshine. Sunny Spain, the
Yes.
Sunshine State, sunny Colorado, 300 days of sunshine. And then there was Chicago. And I got real clear. I was going to have to be basically, I became a very sort of zealous exercise enthusiast to get the endorphins because I
Mhm.
was suffering in Chicago with the gray weather. And but I still have a story of resistance about my mood being impacted by the weather. What do you feel about that?
Every human I know well, including myself, has stories about what should and shouldn't be true.
Yeah.
And you know this. You know this, that you know what I'm going to say. And so this is a perfect example of the process that we're going to be unpacking around all of these emotions. So, here's what happens. Reality is as it is, including so the weather is as it is. My natural response to the weather is what it is. And then my mind starts telling me the story. You should not feel this way. You should not let the weather affect
Yes.
you like this.
Yes.
Who do you think you are? Are you the master of yourself or not, whatever the story. So I could invite you to say,
Yes.
tell me what does your voice say to you?
What you just said is
Pretty much
literally
that,
what I
right?
would say.
Who's the boss of you? Is the weather the boss of you,
Yes.
or are you the boss of you?
Yeah.
Right. And so then we think, I'm the boss of me. So I'm not going to let the weather affect me. And that's when we start arguing with reality. And we always lose. You argue with reality, you lose every time. So, but everyone does this, everyone, including me, including everyone. The shift that we're going to be talking about includes feeling what we're feeling. So we catch ourselves at different times in different moments. Let's say the weather's gloomy and cloudy. I've been kind of sad, disappointed, grumpy for a couple days. I have a recording I'm showing up to. I don't feel how I want to feel. The story in my mind says you need to feel differently. So I start unconsciously obeying the story
Yeah.
and I'm out of alignment. And whenever I catch it, whenever I become aware, if I start noticing that my body feels off or that I'm not fully present, I'm distracted, if I slow way down and ask myself, okay, what is true? And what is true is the weather is what it is. My response to it is what it is. What's the mind story? The mind story is I shouldn't feel this way. I should feel different. I should. Should is one of the key words that your mind is telling you a story about
Yep.
how reality shouldn't be reality. And then if I notice that and I go, oh, okay, the weather is what it is. My response is what it is. And I wish it wasn't. And that is what it is. And then I can be with that. And
Mhm.
for me, there's literally a softening that happens in my body. I kind of soften around what I'm feeling, including softening around my resistance to it. And I, when I'm able to do that, then I can move from resistance to what is to acceptance of what is. And then I've returned to empowered choice around what I do from there.
Right. I love that. And it just it also reminds me that this idea that we can even just be aware of what's happening in our bodies and name the feeling, that's such a
Mm-hmm.
powerful starting point. I was playing the other day with my kids and they have this um weather and days of the week, and it's sort of a calendar, but it also includes how you're feeling. And it has
Mm-hmm.
emojis, and it has one. I can't remember what was happening with me at the time, but the kids were like, "Mommy, mommy, how are you feeling?" And I was like, "Oh," and I picked one that was just sort of neutral looking, right? Like I think honestly can't remember what was happening. But they go, "Oh, you're feeling meh." And I was like, because they can name that emotion as meh, because it's the one with the face with the straight line for a mouth.
Uh-huh.
And they've seen the Emoji Movie. And I was like, this is so great because they actually have access to a word for a feeling that didn't even exist in my vocabulary. And I'm telling them I feel sort of neutral. And they're like, oh, you feel meh. And that was really actually the perfect verbal articulation of how I was feeling at that moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to be able to acknowledge that to our kids too. And that's all
Mm-hmm.
part of what we're going to be sort of skill building and exploring in this series. And so
Mm-hmm.
to add on to what was happening for me yesterday, you talked about and you use the body experience as the starting point. And so that's what we're going to be pointing ourselves back to. That's the first part of this assessment tool, is what is the body experience. And I love to live in my head and have thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy with my thoughts, and sometimes it's sort of like this head that's like floating around detached from this body. And so
Yep.
yesterday when we were recording the first go at this, you talked about how you were feeling in your body, and I was not able to admit or even really articulate or tune into. This does take practice. So over the last
Mm-hmm.
24 hours, what I have realized is, for me, sad feels heavy and slow. And that's how I was
Mhm.
feeling, in spite of having already done my workout yesterday. Like I had my, like, let me get out of this. I'm going to climb out of the pit of sad. Like I'm going to do all the things I know how to do. And because, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my emotional blueprint from my family of origin around sadness, just also to provide that as an example. But to say first, somatic awareness, what was I feeling in my body? I firstly had no awareness yesterday of it. And upon reflection,
Mhm.
it was heavy and slow. And I've used our tool to really look at what is the blueprint for that feeling. Before I go there and talk a little bit about my family of origin and why avoidance of sadness is like a survival level skill for me, I wonder what you might want to, if you want to add anything in, or if I should just go for it. Is there anything about emotional blueprints you want to say?
Um, yeah, I think I just affirm what you're naming. I mean, once so we all have these unconscious processes, and a brief example for me would be when I was a younger parent and I was in public with my children and they started behaving in a way that evoked fear in me, fear of what onlookers might be thinking or how they might be judging me, judging my child, and therefore judging me. I was experiencing my children as an extension of me. And so this whole process would happen inside me. So I'm out at the grocery store, child starts behaving in a particular way. I wasn't connected to this at the time either. And so I think this will parallel what you're talking about with yesterday. I can look back now and describe it because since these times, I have lived through it consciously enough times to know it well. But back then, I couldn't have even articulated this. But the way I would describe it now is something's happening. My child starts behaving in a way, people are looking. Inside, I start panicking. My chest tightens, my heart speeds up. My mind story kicks in immediately. And my mind story was from my psychological blueprint from my childhood, which went something like, we must present a certain way to others. And so mind story activates. Whatever's happening doesn't match the requirements of the mind story. I'm panicking, and then I need to fix it, change it, control it, hide it as soon as possible, including things like, anxiously picking up my tantruming toddler and hightailing it out to the car because I can't abide being present with my tantruming toddler in a grocery store and keep my wits about me. And so the process we're going to be talking about is, and we all have different feelings that will do anything to not feel, that will do anything to not experience, that will do anything to not let other people see.
Mm-hmm.
And so this just all ties into what your psychological blueprint is, what the mind stories that activate immediately around these feelings are, and then creating the ability to slow down, create space, acknowledge this entire process that's happening, and then access choice around what we actually do with it. And so I have moved from a person who could not be present to a tantruming child in public to a person who years later was so fully and calmly present to one of my children when they were freaking out at a park that after it had resolved, I had other parents who were strangers to me come over to me and go, "How did you do that? That was amazing to witness."
Wow.
And yeah, and that's one of my favorite stories because who doesn't love that? And that
Laura,
was
the
one of those
hero.
moments where
Yeah.
right, that my ego was like, you are amazing. People can see it. Yay, you're special. So, but really also there's an authentic loving part of me that was so glad I was able to show up that way in that moment for myself, for my child, and for onlookers to see what is possible.
Yeah.
Because what is one of the things that you and I love talking about the most? What
Yes.
is possible?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
so my parallel to that story from yesterday was essentially, if we go back in time, I was feeling really blue because firstly, I was exhausted. Secondly, the weather. Thirdly, I had just gotten some disappointing news. We had put an offer in on a house for my mom and we didn't get it because shit's crazy, y'all, in real estate.
Mhm.
It sold for
Mhm.
34% above asking. I had to do the math
Mhm.
this morning so I could tell you guys. It's bananas. And so I was feeling disappointed. And I just wanted to hit the eject button or suppress button, I guess you could say. And so as I took a step back in the 24 hours or so between recording the first time and now, what I was looking at was this emotional blueprint that I have around sad. And there's two really powerful pieces around it. The first is my dad struggled with depression and also was very numb and also drank too much, and that was a part of the numbing, the not feeling. And I have really profound fear of, it makes me want to cry, of sadness,
Yeah.
because to me
Yeah.
as a kid what that looked like was the pit you might never get out of.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's like, we can't, it's not safe. And we'll talk about this more in the sadness episode, but now this is a little preview
Mhm.
of like, for me,
Yes.
sad is not safe.
Yes. Yes, and that is so beautiful and profound. And Amy, thank you so much for sharing that and accessing it fully and feeling it. And we can hear that in your voice because this is exactly what happens to all of us when we are raised by adults who are doing their
Oh,
best,
yeah.
but they have not learned or been taught or been guided on how to move all the way through emotion cycles. And so they were conditioned. There's a beautiful example. So, Thomas Hubel is a wonderful wisdom teacher who specializes in the Holocaust. And he studied post Holocaust Germany. And the children that were raised in post Holocaust Germany grew up in this eerie silence that no one was explaining to them because the Holocaust had been so atrocious and so traumatizing for the people there. They were numb, they were frozen, they were stuck in a fight, flight, freeze in a freeze. They did not believe they could move all the way through those feelings. They believed the feelings meant death, annihilation. They would kill them, they couldn't survive them. And so many people have their own versions of this. They grow up in a family where the adults in that family don't know how to move all the way through sadness. Maybe they've experienced deep, dark clinical depression. They've gotten stuck there for a very long time. They're afraid they'll never get out. And so to avoid going there is equated with survival. And then the children raised in that environment internalize that, absorb that. We absorb our parents' feeling states. So if our parents feel on the inside, can't go there, the children grow up learning, can't go there, can't go there. And then when, as adults who begin this transformational journey, who seek intentionally to return to wholeness, which includes having access to all the parts of me and trusting in my ability to grow and mature my capacity to be with them and move all the way through them, it evokes this kind of fear and this emotion. And this, I mean, I have so many clients who freeze, cry, all of these things when they get to the precipice of facing that thing that they were taught you can't face. But I'm here to say, you can, we can. We can become the guide that we didn't have. And then we can offer that to our children and we can offer it to other people. And that's been a big part of my journey because
Mhm.
similarly, I have multiple things from my childhood and my blueprint that my caregivers taught me you cannot, you must not, it equals death. And that's why I say I have a love affair with death now because
Yeah.
I have befriended death. Death for me is part of a process. It's not the end. It's not the end, full stop. It's an ending and a beginning at the same time. And I keep ending and beginning, ending and beginning, ending and beginning, which has built resilience And so now I don't fear death. I welcome it. I move towards it and I move through it. And that's what I want to offer
Yeah,
anyone, everyone.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other dimension of the blueprint that I have around sadness from my mom, who is this nurturing, strong, so resilient human, and grew up in an era where, some of this is just the time when people have lived and what they absorbed from their parents. And it was what was role modeled to me was we don't put words to the negative experiences that we have. We could talk about it when it's over. In retrospect,
Mm-hmm.
we might talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, but we're just gonna put one foot in front of the other and get through. We're not gonna show sadness. We might experience it, but it's not really okay to express and emote around it. So we're just going to
Mm-hmm.
keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't raised with a lot of demonstration, and every family is different, right? You may have been raised in a family where there was a ton of fluence in sadness and not a lot of fluency in positive emotions. In my family of
Right.
origin, there was a lot more focus on only show the positive and let's not put words to or sort of demonstrate the negative. Like let's sort of bucket things in that way. And so that was also part of what was demonstrated to me. And I kind of also have this recollection of the things the adults would have said to me growing up. And I have said the same thing to my kids before I became conscious of it, which is don't be sad. Let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you, and now
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you why not. Don't be sad. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Let me explain it all away. And so I feel like, and we're using your fear and my sadness as the example, and we're going to do entire episodes on
Mm-hmm.
fear and excitement, on sadness and joy. And so we'll deep dive into these. But yeah, that's just part of what we're going to be, I think, modeling and really allowing space for the conversation and the understanding and the unpacking of these blueprints that we all have from our families of origin, and how if we really look at them and understand them and can see them, it gives us access to that
Mm-hmm.
shift so that we can then, as you have so beautifully said, and the whole idea you've brought to this show of becoming, of moving towards wholeness
Mm-hmm.
and stepping into authenticity. So, yeah, that's what was up yesterday and what I got to
Yeah.
see as a result of it.
Well, and it's so beautiful. And it's such a sign of your dedication to this work and your connection to yourself that you were able to acknowledge it and feel it and move through it. I mean, it's been 24 hours, and here you are, fully feeling your feelings, showing up vulnerably and authentically. We can hear it in your voice. And that's amazing. I mean, this is I always think of amazing and your name Amy because you're Amy. I'm like, Amy's amazing, amazing Amy.
Thank you.
And we all are. We all have this
Yeah.
capacity to be amazing, right? And one of the things you and I offer is stepping into our amazingness and owning it and sharing it and showing what is possible. And so, for anybody listening, if yesterday you felt out of alignment, you weren't showing up authentically, you were distracted, you weren't feeling your feelings, you weren't being fully present to your children or your work or your partner, the tools we're going to be offering you can take you from that to reconnected with yourself, clear with what happened and why, choice around where you move from here in 24 hours, which is incredible. And there's so much value in this. And then the more we repeat this process, the more aware we are in more moments, the more access we have to all the aspects of ourselves. And that is what I am here to share. So
So beautiful.
I just love it. Mhm.
So, for the next couple of weeks until we get into the specific feelings, I wonder if we want to kind of tee up um, just inviting our listeners to tune in, to maybe download the tool that we have on the website. Um, it's under bonus content on our website, and also to slow down. I know you talk about
Mm.
slowing down. I'd love if we could just end on that piece.
Absolutely. So here's what happens, whether we're aware of it or not. Sensations arise in our bodies. And then almost immediately, and if we're not consciously aware, it just feels like automatic. The mind has a story. So sensations arise in your body, and your mind has a story or stories about those sensations. And when we're on autopilot, the sensations arise in our body. But like you said, Amy, and I said this yesterday, I've spent most of my life primarily in my mind. And so if my center of gravity is in my mind, if I'm in my mind, the sensations happen in my body, but I'm not even aware of what they are. I couldn't name them. I couldn't describe them. I don't even recognize them. My mind story kicks in, and then I'm in my mind engaging with the mind story and acting and behaving according to the rules of the mind story. When we slow way down and we're aware of this process, and we're aware that it begins with sensations in the body, and then we notice them, we're aware of them, we feel them, we can describe them. We notice the mind story that arises in response to the sensations, but we can question it, we can create space around it. Then we're in choice and we're in the realm of new possibilities. We're no longer unconsciously automatically obeying the mind story. And we're going to be talking about this process in relation to all the feelings we'll be exploring, and we'll be reiterating ways you can access this freedom for yourselves.
I love it. Oh, thank you, Lauren. I'm excited about
Thank
you guys
you,
hearing
Amy.
this episode. It was just way more authentic than what I had to say yesterday when I was in my avoidance cycle.
But this is how we walk the walk, right?
Yeah.
We re-record and we say, listen, y'all, this is what happened yesterday. And this is what's happening today. And we're walking this walk, and you're never done. We're never done.
Yeah.
You know, we've both had these moments. We've both said, hey, can we re-record that one? I realized I wasn't really present.
Yeah.
And so just so much value. I'm so excited for everyone listening to have the opportunity to join us on this journey. We're going to keep sharing our growth journey with you, and we invite you to join us.
And I love you, my co-host.
I love you.
The end.